Hi, I want to talk to you about culture shock. So you're adjusting not only to a language but a culture, and people have thought of culture just like language. You think of language and you think of culture. Um, there's many Englishes and there's also many cultures, so there is no one American culture. There is commonality that's probably found in all American places, but it'll have some differences. And the same thing with academics. There's not just one academic culture, there's many academic cultures. So people will say culture with a big C or culture with a small c. In other words, the big C signifies talking about culture, like American culture. The small c is talking about microculture. So there's a process that you'll all go through, even if you don't want to, no matter how long you've lived in the U.S. or no matter what university you've been to before, and that's called culture shock. So it starts out, and there should be a link to a graphic that shows this. Honeymoon phase, that's where everything's great. Everything's different and you enjoy it. And then you go through what we call culture shock. In other words, you realize that things aren't as wonderful as they were. Maybe the small annoyances catch up with you. Maybe you realize it takes you 10 times as long to write an email at an American university than it did at your high school, or than it did at your other university. Alright? At some point, hopefully, you go through an adjustment period, and at that point, you pick back up and you realize, hey, things aren't so bad. And the idea is that you have the honeymoon, you have the culture shock, and you have adjustment to a realistic level of expectation, where you're performing well, you realize some parts will be stressful, and some parts will be wonderful, and some parts will not be so wonderful. And don't think of it as just one process where you go and you're done forever, but think of it as a continual process, where you do it once, then you do it again, and then you do it again as different things come. Hopefully over time, the amplitude, in other words, how high or low you feel just based solely on culture adjustment, will narrow, and you'll feel more normal. But it's perfectly normal to go through culture shock. In fact, you will. It may take you a week, it may take you 18 months. But at some point, you'll go through a period where you realize that it's really difficult to function, and hopefully you'll go back to a realistic level of adjustment. Thank you.